Hey everybody, good evening. I'm Adrienne Gold and this is your boost, your momentum boost, and it's a very special edition tonight because this is your Passover boost. You know, this month at Momentum, we're focusing on the value of educating our children. So, you know, really there's nothing more important, and probably one of the primary commandments of the Passover Seder is to give over the story of the Exodus to our children. But the problem is, unless it's just me and my family, Seder night can be pretty fraught. People come together, and for a lot of us, we haven't been together in a few years anyway, but things can go wrong and boredom can set in. And for some people, at least when I was growing up, it was, you get through the food, you read through the Haggadah, and then it was on to the hockey game. But Passover can be such an opportunity to explore the personal narratives that freedom really represents. And so while we are commemorating the Exodus from Egypt millennium ago, we can also in many ways tap into our own personal exoduses when we go from constrainment into freedom, because really that is what the spiritual energy of this time of year is. So here at Momentum, because of this learning and growth and educating your children paradigm, thought we would give you some thoughts and some of our insights and our resources to ensure that you have the Seder of a lifetime. And I'm an expert in creating great Seders. So you'll notice that I'm not at home in my usual studio. Where I am is in sunny South Florida. I have to tell you, it's snowing in Toronto, so I couldn't be happier to be here. But more importantly, I'm in the home of my colleague and fellow trip leader, the fantastic, the amazing, the buggy, Ianna Raim. Hey girl, what the heck is flying all over you?
I know, these are the locusts. Are we at the locusts yet?
Oh.
Because you're right, it takes forever sometimes to get all the way through the Seder, but this is my favorite part. There's one, here's another. Oh yeah, okay. But that is my favorite part, really. This is my favorite part.
Oh my gosh, you know,
plagues.
I'm embarrassed to say this, but my husband, every year, because we have these plagues, which you get on Amazon, by the way.
Yes, of course.
All of these little plague kits. My husband always lines them up as though, like, sometimes he makes them in unfortunate, not so attractive positions. Other times he has one eating the other. He plays with them all night, and we throw them at each other.
And you don't even need children, right? You do that with your husband? Amazing.
Alone with my husband, but my kids used to love it. Oh, wait, can I just show you the best plague of the year? Now, I think most of you know out there that the Nile River, the first plague, turned into blood. So you go on Amazon, you get yourself some blood, you pick up your glass, you drop a little blood in it, and look what happens.
How cool
oh my
is
God.
that?
I can't get enough
cool
of this.
Is that?
Have a glass.
Okay, and when the kids spill that, it doesn't even get dirty, right? It just cleans right up, not to worry.
Never mind. Not everyone has a white tablecloth like you.
So
Ianna,
pretty.
first of all, I must say this table is exquisite.
Thank
These
you.
chargers with the matching napkin rings and all of the plagues and the beautiful flowers. And all that is fantastic, but it doesn't really help when no one has anything to talk about except what's going on in their lives. And you want this to be a meaningful night.
For sure.
So Momentum, obviously, we have all these incredible resources that we work on, and we actually have a companion, a Passover companion, that it'll be in the chat function and you'll be able to just download it and use it.
It's
but we
amazing.
have something else that changes everything.
And they are the conversation starters, which is really brilliant. And these are also available in the chat.
Yeah.
And what's brilliant about this is, like you said, you don't want your Seder to be boring. And the thing is, it's one thing to just read from the Haggadah and have everyone go around. And that's nice, except, of course, when you stop on someone who Hebrew is not their first language and you got to get through all that.
Oh, you do it in Hebrew?
No, some people do, and you have to be respectful, and it takes forever. But other than that, other than just reading, it was meant to be a dialogue. It was meant to tell our story over and have people ask questions, not just the kids, but the adults too. And so these conversation starters are amazing because they really create dialogue. And I love these because they're very modern. They talk about everything from COVID to your favorite part of the food, but they're also very meaningful. Like you said, they really go inner as well, because we're supposed to remember that we're supposed to feel as if we were there in Mitzrayim, and that Hashem took us out, right? And so this talks about, as if we were there, what's our personal bondage now?
Let's
and I love
try
that.
a few of them. Let's sort of chat it up.
Okay.
One of the things I just wanted to tell you that what I do is, even before the Seder, I send favorite quotes to all of my guests to get them into the mindset that I'm going to make them think. Now, they're not necessarily Jewish quotes. They might be quotes from a song. They might be, musical things. They could be any number of things, but related to freedom. So that I'll send them an email and I'll say, okay, here's the quote that please come prepared to talk about it. And if you don't feel comfortable talking about it, you don't have to, but just get into your mindset, because we want this evening to be more than just, they tried to kill us, we won, let's eat.
Yeah, for sure. There are so many good ones, but sort of based on what you just said, I like this one. So we start, let's see, they're all good.
I'll pick whatever you want.
Okay, so it goes in order, right? And we have several steps. It takes all the way through from the beginning to the end.
People don't know that.
Oh.
Seder means order.
Right.
People don't know that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it takes us through the order of what happened, and there's an order to the way we have this meal. So we start with Kadesh Orchatz Karpas Yachatz. You know the song.
Yes, I do.
But anyway, I like Karpas because I think it speaks to something you just said. So here it is.
All right.
It says Karpas is vegetables. It's step number 3. And it says, we begin the Seder with a taste of spring. After the cold and darkness of winter, the rejuvenation of spring reveals itself. But why would we dip the symbols of growth and renewal in salt water, which symbolizes tears? What's the value, Adrienne, of acknowledging pain and sadness during a celebration of freedom and hope?
Wow. That's a big question.
Yeah.
I guess it would depend on who I was engaging. I mean, obviously, from a Jewish perspective, I would answer you in a way that was, more scholarly, for example. But if I was trying to engage my kids with a question like that, maybe I might say something like, has there ever been a situation in your life where things are great, but one thing is there that makes it all suck? Yeah. And how do you manage sitting with the sweet and the salty together? And I think most kids, from most ages, I think most teenagers, certainly if we were just talking about COVID, the sweet part was that, I got to be with my family, which was harder for us. I got to be with my family, but the sour bit or the salty bit was that I didn't get to see my friends. Yeah. Do you think I actually think it's very beneficial to teach children to be able to sit with the broken and the whole?
Absolutely, absolutely. And, when you said that, it also reminded me, when times are really good and our kids are really joyous, I think the saltiness also helps them to remember that not everyone may feel that good. Like, just to remember others around them, that there's a little bit of grief and salt in everyone's life. And so while we celebrate freedom, and hopefully Passover is a wonderful night where everyone's behaving, I think it's also important to remember that there's always a bitterness. But when we can embrace what's good, then the bitterness sort of like gets dissipated, the salt in the water, it's not so salty.
Right. It's interesting you should say that, because it brought to mind for me this whole, unfortunate war that's happening in the Ukraine and so on. And, one of the mitzvahs of Passover is that you're supposed to welcome the stranger. And it says, and we say this repeatedly during our liturgy anyway all year long, because we're not to oppress the stranger, because we were strangers in the land of Egypt. And here we have in real time, unfortunately, people immigrating, going to Poland, to Germany, the very places where we tried to escape. Natan Sharansky famously said that on his passport it said Jew, which meant, when he was in Ukraine, which meant he couldn't go anywhere. But today, the fact that it's stamped Jew, that he's a Jew, if you're a Jew in Ukraine, then Jewish organizations in the land of Israel are welcoming the strangers in like crazy.
How beautiful.
I wonder, do you think it would be worthwhile to talk about, for example, immigrants and immigration and the war culture during this year's Seder?
I think it is. I think the more the Seder can be relevant to our daily lives, because it's not enough to just tell a story of our ancestors thousands of years ago. It's got to be something that's meaningful to us. So I think it's completely relevant. And I think, speaking of Ukraine, the pride that people will have that the president is Jewish, and really he's changing the consciousness of the world in so many ways. Yes. I think it's absolutely, I think that's relevant. I think the fact that people are fleeing their homeland just like we had to do is relevant. I think the fact that women in the Ukraine are taking the burden while the men stay back, and we in fact were redeemed from Egypt in the merit of the Jewish women.
Right.
I think it's all good to talk about.
I think we would be remiss to not cover it. Okay, let me ask you one.
Yeah.
So I'll ask you one, and then maybe you could tell me how you would answer it to the adults, and maybe how you would answer it to the kids. Before I do this though, I have another way of dealing with the kids that I've always done, which I think is super cool, and that's the following. The Seder can go very late. kids get tired and they can't always sit at the table. Now, when I was first making real seders, I used to yell at my kids, get back to the table, like with my head turning on my neck, like The Exorcist, which is not cool. So what I came to do was I created underneath the table, I create a nest. I put sleeping bags and blankets, bowls of snacks, candies, toys, that kind of thing, so that when they feel like they're tired, instead of going over to the sofa on the other end of the living room, they're right under the table. And of course, they want to tickle your toes and stuff like that. And you know what? The most important part of the Seder is building memories that will last a lifetime. And my children, who are 26 and 30, still think back about the nest under the table. So I want to add that.
So cute. I love that idea.
Okay, it's good.
Can
You
I
can
get
borrow
under
it.
the
You can
table?
borrow it. Get under the table.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go to Magid, which is the retelling of the story, and the Manishtana, which of course the youngest tells. And here's what this conversation card says. What is different about this night? How is this night different from the Passover we experienced last year and the year before? What important, challenging, or inspiring questions are coming up for us at this time? What gives you hope that things that need to change will change? And my favorite, what's your favorite song about hope or change?
Wow. Well, my favorite song, Passover song, which I think is about hope. It's also about gratitude, is Dainu, but maybe that's a whole other story. I love that song. That is my go-to. I could have that on my playlist all the time. But I think that what makes this Seder different, I think it's so obvious, right? This is the first Seder where, like, I'm not asking people to get tests before they come or wear masks during, like, before they eat and after they eat. I mean, it really is a freedom in that way, a freedom to just be and to not be afraid. And I think that's the biggest change. Yeah. And even that in our technically enabled lives feels free. And so I think even there we can relate to what we had before, millennia ago. So I think that's one thing. For the first time, when we had COVID, this probably was the same for you, 2 years ago, it was just family. It was immediate family. It was like immediate family, close all the doors, don't let anyone in family. Right. And it was, in a way, we missed the extended family for sure, but in another way, we kind of leaned in to our own nuclear unit. And so we've decided this year that the first night, we're gonna be lots of people, like we always were, and the second night, we're just gonna be ourselves, just because we got used to that also, which is really nice. So I think there's a balance there. Yeah. So I think in many ways it's different and different for good, but we shouldn't forget the different that it was. COVID was a hard time, and I think like I said before, I think every time we're joyous, we've always got to remember the people who who aren't as joyous, the pain as well. So,
you're so right, because otherwise then we have not just 2022, we have 2022.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what's the point of that?
For
I
sure.
have a favorite freedom quote. You probably know it. I love it. It's Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who went through Auschwitz. And he says, between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is your ability to choose your response. And in that response lies your freedom and your growth. And one of the things about having a ton of people around again is there are certain people who trigger you. I can't be the only one who has an allergy to certain people.
Oh no, you're the only one. I'm kidding.
And now, especially at Pesach, when I think about that space between stimulus and response, I'm going to recommit myself this year to being certain that before I react to any stimulus, I examine my response for where there's growth and there's learning.
And when you do that, right, you just feel so triumphant. I mean, when you're able
that's
to
freedom.
That is freedom, right? When we don't let our words and our emotions and our urges overtake us, but we have control over them, that's freedom, right?
So true.
So true.
Okay, give me one.
Okay, here you go. Let's see.
I think I want one of these in my hair. What do you think?
Oh yeah, like 2 or 3. Yeah, well, outside we have iguanas in Miami, so if I find one, I'll make sure we get
I
one
like
of
to
those
think
too.
of this as a fascinator. I want to be fascinating. Okay, go ahead. There's so many.
I know. Okay. Okay, here's one.
Okay.
Bitter herbs and the Hillel sandwich.
I love the Hillel sandwich because I'm starving by the time of the Hillel sandwich.
I think we talked about this already. Can I just, I'm fine.
Okay, pick something else.
I mean, they're so good. Okay, this is really easy. The festive meal.
Yes.
Okay. What's your favorite food memory from a Seder you participated in?
Wow. You know what? My favorite food memory is not from one of my own seders. It's from a movie. I forget the name of it, but it was a seder. I can't remember what film it was. And the uncle comes in late.
Oh, no.
You cut the Twinkie without me.
Oh my gosh. My husband, like, you cut the Twinkie. No, it's called Avalon. It was so good. It was such. I don't think it's Passover, but it's Thanksgiving, but it doesn't matter.
It's Passover to me. Oh my gosh.
Passover, Thanksgiving. For Jews, it's all eating. Yeah.
You know what?
I love that you cut the Twinkie.
I cut this. I love, first of all, I love turkey.
Bugs
are falling.
Falling.
Wait.
Falling.
I need a frog. Can I just tell you a little thing about frogs? I think this is really, really important. Okay, this is so super important, especially for mom who spent all this time getting her table together and making the meal because, of course, like you should be so full from the matzah and the Hillel sandwich by the time the meal comes that you're not that hungry.
So it doesn't matter if it's good or not.
You probably already know this, and I'm preaching to the choir, but I just want to share this because I think it's brilliant. The second plague, of course, were the frogs, right? Seder Yet, right? And they, the image that we always get of the frogs that they're jumping in, in Pharaoh's pajamas. You always see the little kids with the frogs all over his pajamas, and they were in the ovens and they were in the beds, and that's what they teach the little ones. But we do learn that it was actually, in the Midrash teaches us that there was only one frog. One frog. Have you learned this before?
From you, Adrienne.
Okay, be quiet. I have to tell it every year. Okay, so there was one frog. Can we get a shot of that? One frog. And then what happened was the frog came out of the Nile, and the Egyptians were so freaked out from the whole blood debacle that they thought, this is ridiculous. So they banged. Oh, sorry, is this glass?
No, it's.
Okay, I'll use the plastic one. All right, they banged the frog. And when they banged the frog, it turned into two frogs.
And then?
They banged it again, and then again, and again, and every time they banged it, it would multiply exponentially from 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 32 to 64. Can you go any higher? Okay, so there was all of these frogs. And the meta message is when we strike back in anger, when our anger is uncontrolled, we lose the freedom to see what's happening right in front of us. How is it possible that every time we hit it, that it would multiply and we didn't notice that? It's because you literally take loss of your mind. Sure. It's as though it's gone. So one of the things I like to talk about when we get to the frogs, when we do Seder Yet and we dip the blood, is I will often ask the kids, what makes you super, super mad? What makes you so mad? And then we talk about how you make that mad worse. How do you bang the frog? That's a memory from my childhood that has stuck forever.
Oh, wow, what a fantastic lesson. Because so often we really do make our frogs multiply. We really, really do. And it's to remember that's freedom.
That is freedom.
Just to make everything worse, if we can somehow force pause, wow, that's amazing.
Can you give me another question?
Another one.
And I'll get you one.
I'm going to hit you up. Yeah, okay. Let's see. Here's Afikomen, which is the end. But it's not in order, okay?
It's the dessert.
Okay.
The Afikomen's
Safun.
Do you know I did not know that the Afikomen was the dessert? I did not know it was meant to be the dessert.
Really?
Nope.
I mean, it's not very sweet or tasty, but at that point, who needs more, right?
Exactly.
Matzah's good.
Well, you know what they say. Matzah's the reason that we have to say, let my people go.
I get you.
Okay, sorry.
I get you.
Yeah.
All right,
She's such a lady. You're not even laughing.
Afikomen.
Yes.
The dessert. We hide the Afikomen, right? That's the first thing we do. Mm-hmm. And the person who's leading the Seder will hide the Afikomen when the kids aren't looking. And then at the end, which is really a favorite part of our house, because for some reason I have one daughter who always finds it. I don't know how. Year after year, it's always the same daughter. Uh-huh. She's got a lot of money. That's what we give. We give money. Uh-huh. And so it is afterwards. It's hidden until the kids find it. So, question, what are we hiding from ourselves? Moses' life began being hidden for 3 months. Miriam, Moses' sister, hid behind the reeds when Moses was placed in the basket. Remember, because the Egyptians had a decree to kill all the boys. We hide the Afikomen early in the Seder and then find it at the end. What lost part of ourselves, our family, or our Jewish tradition might we have found in the process? And why is it important to finish the meal by finding what's hidden? That's a lot of questions. Just tell me what's meaningful to you.
Wow. Well, I know what's been lost for me over the last 2 years. You know, we all struggle with different things. You know, I have that obsessive compulsive disorder, which is kind of an anxiety disorder. But what I lost over the last few years was the freedom to move through the world without fear. It just exasperated all of my anxieties. You know, my shtick was that I was going to be symptomatic, I was going to give it to somebody else, they were going to get sick and die, it was going to be my fault. There was a lot of shtickelach. What I lost over the last few years was the ease with which I interact with people, and I have had to force myself back into it. This will be the first year that I'm at a table, unmasked, with people that I love. I mean, you're in Florida.
Yeah.
I know the COVID thing in Florida isn't like it was in Toronto. I lived in abject fear for 2 years.
Wow.
I have to tell you, I did. And even though I'm triple vaccinated, not that that has anything to do with anything, because you can still get it, I feel like I have refound my joy for life now. And that...
Because we crave human interaction, right?
We do.
And I think even for someone like you, Adrienne, so outgoing, so loving and bubbly, when you are out of practice, right, and you really haven't seen people, it almost feels awkward, right? It feels like an effort, and that's why I'm so excited that Momentum does this virtually, that we're doing things in person. Like we need one another, you know? We absolutely do. And the Seder is the most celebrated holiday of all time among Jews everywhere. And when we do it, that's where I feel like Jews all over the world are needing one another and gathering. And I think it's especially meaningful now after COVID, you know, based on the kinds of things you just described.
I think that you're right. You know, one of the things that I'm hoping will happen this year, I dropped them off. One of the things I'm hoping will happen this year is that everybody will show each other a little bit of grace in a way that they haven't. I think that we realize that we miss each other, that we need each other, and that the things that used to bug us, that were triggers for us, were very, very small in the scheme of things.
I hope so. Because if we don't learn that, what was it for?
We're still enslaved.
You know? Exactly.
To our egos.
You know? And I think COVID maybe, you know, part of who knows the greater plan was really for us to take a step back and to be more graceful to ourselves, to others, and to just appreciate the things that we take for granted, like sitting here unmasked with you, with things flying out of our hair.
I know. I love it so much. And drinking blood. I wish this was red wine. It's a little early, but I wish it was red wine. Yeah, I just keep thinking, Ianna, that as we move into this Pesach season, that in each and every one of us, there is a voice of Pharaoh. You know, there is the part of us that doesn't want to liberate ourselves from our fears, that wants to stay stuck in our old stuff.
Because it's comfortable.
It's comfortable. We return to the familiar, right?
Absolutely.
The Stockholm Syndrome in our own hearts. And then there's that voice of Moses that says, we can go anywhere, we can do it, let your issues go. Right? Let your people go, let your issues go. And that freedom in the promised land really is every time you shut down that voice of Pharaoh and you listen to that voice of Moses. And it's, for me, it's a big deal. Okay, I'm going to ask you one more because I want to hear your, this is going to be good for you. This is Barech, this is the blessing after the meal. You know, it's interesting. It's easy to say prayers before you eat when you're hungry.
That's it.
But it's harder to say thank you when you're satiated. Okay, Jewish tradition is loaded with many blessings for every life passage and for many daily and seasonal events. Of all the blessings, only one is explicitly commanded in the Torah, and that's the blessing after a meal. Why, of all possible blessings, did God focus on the blessing after eating? And then, to whom and how do you offer gratitude when you enjoy a meal?
Oh, wow. So I think it's what you said. I'm not a sage, but if I had to guess, I think it's the one that is dictated in the Torah because of exactly what you said. It's easy to ask for God for things when we need them, when we're sick, when we're scared. But when things are going well, like when our tummy is full, it's a lot harder. We forget from whence comes our blessings,
Right.
right? And so I think that it is, and all the blessings we say, right, Adrienne? I mean, all blessings are not for God, right? They're for us. We say blessings because it is good for us. And so when we say a blessing after we have eaten a big meal and we're satiated, it is a reminder that all the abundance we have is not from us, it's from God. And when we, grateful people, as Momentum always says, are happy people. And so the more that you can thank God for a meal, for everything in our lives, for a new dress, right? After you put on a new dress, all of it, it all makes us happier because we're focused on not what we don't have, but what we do have. And that's why I said earlier, my all-time favorite song is Dayenu, because it's all about gratitude. It's all about that would have been enough. Like, thank you, that would have been enough, right? I didn't need that, but you gave it to me. Thank you. I didn't need this big meal. I ate it and I loved it. Thank you. So that's why I think that, and I think if we can pass that feeling on to our kids, and that's why in our house, my kids hate me for this, we sing every single verse of Dayenu because I love it so much. Because it's really, gratitude is everything. To me, it's the elixir of life, honestly. It really is.
Wow. I wish I could be here in your house
You're invited.
for Passover. Yeah,
They're always invited.
Just the sun shining. I am so grateful for this South Florida climate, for your beautiful sunny smile, for this great table, for all of these props, for all of it. And I don't know if you noticed, but the hail has like a tiny red star in it because there's an idea that the hail had fire on the inside of it. Another kind of salty and not so salty thing. So super cool. Yeah, this was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Adrienne, for coming.
Are you going to use them?
Yeah, absolutely. For sure I'm going to use them. And I think it's what you mentioned before. It's a great hack. You could send these ahead of time to people going to your Seder, download them, forward them, and have them pick their favorite one and bring it to the Seder. Like, that would be amazing. Because it's one thing to go through the Seder and have everyone read, and we have to do that. That's awesome. But another thing to make it our own, right? And to have someone come and be proud.
That is right.
I love that.
I'm doing that this year. But yes, when I go home, I'm going to send those out. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Who are you having, by the way?
I don't know yet. We'll see. But generally, I have anyone who has nowhere to go.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
Really nice. Yeah.
I love it.
We're supposed to. Thank you, Adrienne.
Thank you, Mola. Oh, you're the best. Mwah. And thank all of you for joining us. This has just been extraordinary. This conversation has been rich and fulfilling. And you can do this at your table. Just make sure that you take the questions down to the level of your children. Kids have a lot to say. They have a lot of thoughts and opinions on things. And it's really important to engage them and let them know, let them feel that their voices are heard and that their voices carry, because in this month of educating our children with this key opportunity that the Passover Seder is, our blessing to all of you from all of us at Momentum is that you be well, that you experience freedom, that you move from stimulus and response and lengthen that space, and that you understand that no matter what, when you get up in the morning and you take that breath, it's Dayenu. It's Dayenu. Amen. And remember, as we learn and grow and teach our children together, that the highest form of wisdom will always be kindness. Good night, everybody.
I've got 1,000 questions,